As I'm sitting here, we're talking about this, Russ. Like, I'd love to get in the ring with Cordo and fight him.
Oh, dude, it's over.
Like I would love to do that. Like, line it up and I'll fight Cordo.
Yeah, let's party.
You know, we do white collar boxing now, and we talk about transformational power and bringing people's networks together and community and all of that sort of stuff. I've seen that firsthand. It's kind of changed my life.
This is a cracker story. Every time I feel like it's going somewhere, it just goes the opposite place.
This has got a lot to do with the environment that I grew up in. You know, I try and adopt that sports club mentality.
How are you today, my man?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm amazing, thank you. Thanks so much for jumping on. It's going to be really cool to sort of sit down. Like I remember from like the first time that we spoke, right? It was like the story of the brand, the story of like who you are and how you end up here was like super interesting to me. So I'm excited to sort of unpack that, mate. But mate, tell us a little bit about yourself, sort of where you grew up and like where you're from. Let's begin there.
Yeah, no worries. And I've got to be careful when I talk to you, mate, because the Aussie twang comes out a little bit more when we chat.
Is that the swear words as well?
Well, that as well. Well, you have to give me the green or red light on this. This
green light.
Green light. Okay,
green light, brother.
Good. So look, I grew up in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. So I grew up in Reservoir, but if anybody sort of knows northern suburbs of Melbourne, Preston, Reservoir, Heidelberg, all those sort of areas. So fairly rough and tumble, I guess you could say.
Yep.
They're probably a little bit cool now, and real estate's a lot more expensive. But at least when I was there, you didn't want to leave your bike unlocked, that's for sure.
Really?
So I grew up there, which, coming from a sort of working class suburb.
My brother too, Russ.
Hey, how are you? Yeah, so look, working class suburb.
What was the big industry there, Russ? Like what were people doing around that area? Is it industrial? Is it trades?
Yeah, pretty much both. I mean, in Reservoir, sort of where I grew up, there was still a manufacturing area around there, which is obviously pretty rare in Oz now, right? So there was sort of a manufacturing area there, but typically it was working class stuff. My old man's a truck driver, tow truck driver. My mum's a teacher. So proper working class. But yeah, that was the area. And, we were doing all the stuff that kids were doing back in the 80s and 90s when we were young. We were tearing around on our bikes, knocking over letterboxes and doing all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then, in our teenage years, we were, drinking down at the lake and running from the cops.
Yeah. And was there a other, like, were you influenced by other people around that area, Russ? Or like, was there older kids that, you guys sort of look up to?
Well, the answer is yes. And there was kind of, I guess you were influenced in one of two ways, right? There was heaps of sports going on. So everyone was playing footy or cricket or boxing or whatever else. And so you were either influenced by the guys that were doing your sport. And there's a bunch of guys that we went to school with that ended up playing AFL or, Division 1 and all that sort of stuff. So that was obviously the dream for the kids around there. There was the kids in the boxing gym that were doing really well. And then, of course, there was all the knockabout kids, right? And so you got influenced one way or another.
Yeah.
And they weren't mutually exclusive, right? So, a lot of the knockabout kids were hanging around the footy clubs and the sports clubs and all of that sort of stuff. So we were just scallywags having a good time.
And you went all through school there? Like, did you do all your growing up into your teens there?
Yeah. So I went to public schools, Reservoir Districts High School is where I went. So that was like right smack bang in the middle of Preston and Reservoir. And we had all the good characters from around the area. But I went through schooling all the way there. And then I think probably the thing for me, which was maybe a little bit different, is most of the people that I grew up with, they sort of, left school at 15 or 16 and took up a trade. And I was one of the few kids sort of, at least around my group, that went to uni. I look back now and see all of my Sparky mates that are working on the mines and know that I absolutely made the wrong decision.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either, Russ. I'm a Sparky and I've worked in the mines, and I think where I am at the moment is significantly better than doing that.
Yeah, I know, but when you look at it and you add it all up, you go, geez, I tell you what, dropping out of school at 16, doing an apprenticeship, and then the coin that they're on these days is phenomenal.
So you enjoyed school, Russ? Like, and how'd you go academically? Or you hated it?
I was a fuck up at school, so I was since primary school, and look, every time I see my parents and they want to go and tell stories to my wife and stuff like that, the stories are always the same theme. My parents were always at the school. I was always getting into trouble. I was always sort of wagging and all that sort of stuff. But I was just lucky. I was just smart.
Yeah.
The teachers hated that because I was able to, be the naughty kid, but I was also able to do all right.
So were they like class clown, or were you naughty? Like were you a naughty kid, or was it just like disruptive and sort of like no one, not really challenged? Were you like bored?
No, all of the above.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny because like I can kind of sort of see myself in similar shoes, but the problem with this, Courtney was he was in front of me at school, and he was just probably the same thing, mate. Knock around, fighting all the time, like he's just constantly just in fights, and like set that reputation. So when I got to year 7, I was like, oh, not another Joyce boy, right? So I come into high school and it's like, not another Joyce boy, and like I was getting kicked out of class. Again, like I didn't find it necessarily that challenging in the beginning, and I'd come in, I'd do it very easy. And I'd get kicked out of class for being disruptive or being a class clown, and everyone just sort of labelled me with that, another Joyce boy, he's a Joyce boy, and just kick me out. Let's kick me out of the class. And then I'd come in for a test and ace it, and that used to frustrate the shit out of the teachers. Probably very similar to yourself.
Mate, exactly the same. And look, as I get a little bit older, what I like to think that I was really a genius and they just put me in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
But look, I was fortunate at school in that, you sort of have some influential people throughout your life. And I had a principal of my high school, a guy by the name of John Conway, and he always took a shine to me. So even when I was getting suspended from school, and I was suspended all the time, I was always on sort of behaviour cards and stuff like that. But for one reason or another, this bloke liked me, and so he used to tell my parents, don't worry about him. He's a good kid. He's smart. He'll figure out his way. So I kind of try and do that with a lot of the youths that I deal with now. Like I see the kids that have been a little bit naughty, and I'll probably take more of a shine to those guys. And I just try and tell them, look, don't get disheartened by all of these people that are going to put shit on you and, make you feel like you're the odd one out at school. You just need one person to believe in you. I had that with my principal, so I was lucky not to get kicked out of school, although I was suspended a lot. And that for me later on, I went back and told him years later when I was an adult and just said to him, just that sort of belief was really meaningful to me. And so, I ended up going to uni, and I ended up getting a real job with a real career.
What did you study?
I did a double degree in HR and psychology. So, and when I started that, I thought I wanted to be a psychologist.
Yep.
I thought that would mean that I was a mystical Mike. I'd be able to read people's minds and stuff like that. And then when I got to the first year of uni, they said, yeah, it's all statistics and it's all maths. And I hated all of that stuff.
Right.
So I took a shining more towards the business side of my degree. And just started to enjoy more of the HR and stuff like that. And I ended up getting into my first job out of uni was I got into recruitment straight off the bat, headhunting, which is what I ended up doing for the next 15 years.
So what year was that, or how old were you then?
So I finished high school in 98. I took a gap year in 99.
Where'd you go? What'd you do?
I wish I did something productive. I had a whole bunch of shit jobs. So I worked in a door factory.
Yeah.
As a builder's labourer. I got accepted for a tattoo apprenticeship, which to my mum's.
This is a cracker story. Every time I feel like it's going somewhere, it just goes the opposite place.
Yeah, it was wild. The day I come home, and because I've got some ink and I've always been interested in art and stuff like that. The day I came home and said to my mum, hey, that university degree that I've been accepted into that I'm supposed to start next year, actually I'm considering doing a tattoo apprenticeship. She nearly lost her rag. But yeah, so look, but it was a gap year for me, which made me figure out really, really quickly that I was not a hands-on guy. Like I didn't want to be doing I couldn't have been a tradesman. I couldn't have been a labourer. I hated it.
Yeah.
So the only alternative for me was to get an education and get a job where I got to wear a suit.
And when you when you knuckled down and you poured into like university and studying and did you have like a total different mindset towards your education and learning, like as opposed to high school?
It was late high school when I finally started to sort of go, all right, I need to sort of, I need to
apply yourself.
I need to get serious. So VCE years, year 11 and 12, is when I studied harder. And so, look, I did all right. I didn't do amazing with I don't know what they call it now, but it was an enter score then. So I did all right. Not amazing, but I'd already started to knuckle down by then. But I guess for me, and this is a big part of my story, my first son, my eldest kid, was born when I was young. So a day before my 21st birthday.
Wow.
So I was still at uni. So that for me was the catalyst where I had to go, all right, now I need to get serious. And that's when I sort of really knuckled down with school and, work and career and all that sort of stuff.
It's a pretty quick way to get maturity. Be a dad.
I don't know if I'd recommend it. I probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I wouldn't change it though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And were you in a relationship with his mum at that stage or no? Yeah. Yeah.
High school sweethearts.
Yeah, that's cool. And so I don't want to go away from where we are now, but like your relationship with him now would be like, you almost have like a lot of similar interests in a lot of ways, right? Like 20 years isn't much of a gap.
Yeah, it's not much of a gap. I mean, I'm in Singapore now, and they're in Melbourne. So I got elder kids that are in Melbourne, all studying. So eldest is at Melbourne Uni, the others at La Trobe. So we're close enough, but we're far away. So
that's wild, man. Come out of, and then so like 15 years in the corporate world, like that. It seems like a long time. Did that go fast? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, probably. I guess fast-ish. So for me, I felt really lucky in that the first career opportunity that I explored seriously, which was recruitment, I felt like just a duck to water. For me, it felt like exactly the job for me. And funnily enough, when I applied for this, in my mind, I liked the idea. I thought it sounded cool to be a consultant. Right. Didn't know consulting in what, right?
Does sound cool.
But I just thought that sounded like a cool job. I wasn't smart enough to work in any of the big four. Like I applied for all the grad programs and that sort of stuff. And I ended up applying for a job which was a recruitment consultant, and I had absolutely no idea what a recruitment consultant did. It just had consultant in the name. So anyway, I ended up, I applied and I got that job. And, the kid from the northern suburbs who'd sort of seen just working class people all of his life, all of a sudden they're going to pay me to wear a suit, go into the city, drink lattes with people and just talk shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, this doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah. And was that like relatively good money for like that age and where you were, like amongst your group of friends? Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, recruiting it's a sales job. And so, I mean, at that stage, the basic salaries that were available weren't that great. I think off the top of my head, it was like 23 grand a year or something like that was the base salary. But if you did well, like any sales job, then you could earn a decent coin. And so I remember sort of my first year of that job, my director of the company said, look, the top performing guys, they're earning, 55, 60 grand a year. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to be better than those guys, right? I'm just going to absolutely smash it. So I became obsessed. And then I did really well in the first year. And, sort of that, to answer your question, it went pretty quickly, that career in hindsight, because I got fast-tracked and good opportunities kept coming up left, right, and center. So for the first company that I worked with, I was in a management role within the first couple of years and built out a decent-sized team. And then, I got the opportunity to move internationally, back in 2011. That's when I moved to Singapore. And, there was always just good and exciting opportunities coming in that line of work. And so, I was pretty successful. I ended up as a MD of a business here in Singapore, which was sort of running their Asia business, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Philippines. By the time I sort of transitioned over to fitness. So it was a fast-paced, successful career. And, at the time, I thought that was, I thought I'd found my absolute groove. But then I got into fitness and realized that this is really my calling.
Yeah, interesting. So during the start of that career, were you into like training and health and fitness and like or boxing at that stage?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a, parallel. Look, like most people in Oz, right? Like sport was always a foundation of my life. So I started doing martial arts when I was 8 years old. My parents put me into that. So this is back in like 1988. And the style of martial arts that I got put into then, if it was today, it would be called mixed martial arts. So it was boxing, it was Muay Thai, it was BJJ, it was wrestling, it was some weapons training, and it was all rolled into one style. So I started doing that as a kid. I ended up getting my second degree black belt in that style. So I did that for about 8 or 9 years. I was one of their youngest instructors. So I was teaching adults when I was like 11 or 12 years old.
Wow.
Huge.
It was wild. Like, so I was doing that, and then footy and cricket was sort of the next sporting thing. So all throughout my teenage years, I was playing footy and cricket, and I played representative level sport in both footy and cricket. And then through footy, that's how I got back into boxing. So I started boxing. I think it was like late teens or something like that. Through a mate at the footy club who was doing some boxing. And then sort of, got involved in that. I was boxing for a while, and, I was having a sort of handful of competitions. Like I've always competed in martial arts all throughout since I was 8 years old, different tournaments and competitions and all of that sort of stuff. So that sort of boxing, martial arts and sports had always been a feature throughout my life. And then I did what all stupid young adults do. And when I started my career proper, so it would have been like 22, 23, I sort of stopped pretty much all of my sports. And I had that period of my life where sort of mid-20s to late 20s, put on a bunch of weight, drank too much and did all that silly stuff. And then when the opportunity came for me to move to Singapore, had a bunch of stuff going on in my life, but it was a real godsend that I got sent to Singapore for this opportunity. But one of the things that I sort of said to myself was, right, I'm going to get back into my training. I'm going to get back into martial arts. And so when I moved to Singapore, started training again, and then ended up having a handful of professional boxing fights. Nothing sort of high level, but just went through the process of training camps again, and ended up having a handful of fights. Fought on some decent sized shows in Singapore, which was a lot of fun, and that sort of kept me fit and healthy. So on and off, all throughout my life, I've always been involved in sort of boxing and sports.
When you moved to Singapore, was that kind of like the reset for you? It's like, right, I'm going there almost like starting again. It's like now it's an opportunity for me to get my routine. I don't know anyone there. It's like I'm going to train, I'm going to work, and I'm going to build something. And that something might have been yourself.
100%. 100%. That's exactly what happened. And even at that stage, I left my family for a year.
Wow.
Huge, yeah.
I'm going to go over. I needed a restart in my life for several different reasons, not for the conversation on this podcast.
Yeah.
But, there was a lot of drivers as to why I wanted to go. And so I went for a year, and I said, right, I've got to really reinvent myself here, which is what I did. And then I ended up bringing the kids over to Singapore after the first year. And then, they ended up living in Singapore until they ended up going back to Melbourne a few more years. And then, I'd sort of set up my life here now. So, I've got a couple of businesses here, and wife and house and a couple of cats. So, it was a real redefining moment for me when I moved here.
Yeah.
It's almost, I was going to say, it's almost like a circuit breaker on life, right? Just like circuit breaker and reset. That's cool.
Yeah.
So where did Spartans, like how did Spartans come about? Like what was that story?
You want the long story or the short story?
Yeah, mate, give us the good one. If it's long, it's
yeah,
long.
no, I'll give you the good one. So, in 2014, I had a buddy of mine. So I was coaching boxing at that stage in Singapore. I was just sort of coaching on the side while I was still working. And I had a good buddy of mine who was taking part in a white collar boxing match in Singapore. So I was training him for that.
Were they big there at that stage? Were they white collar big in Singapore at that stage?
Massive. Yeah, so there was a gym that was doing them then. It's not around anymore, but they were doing huge shows, 1,500, 2,000 people at a show for white collar. Yeah, so there was my buddy who I was coaching, and then there was another couple of other people. There was obviously other competitors on the card, and I didn't know it at the time, but my now business partner was on the same card as my mate. And also, just to kind of make it a little bit smaller of a world, our now business partner for our Philippines business was also on that same white collar boxing card.
Wow.
You know, we do white collar boxing now, and we talk about sort of, you know, the transformational power and, you know, bringing people's networks together and community and all of that sort of stuff. You know, I've seen that firsthand. It's kind of changed my life that there was this fateful white collar boxing match that went on back in 2014. Anyways, fast forward to 2015. I'm talking to my mate. I said, "Hey, look, I really want to ramp up on this boxing stuff." He goes, "You should talk to my business partner's name is Naz Musa." He goes, "You should talk to Naz. He's just opened a boxing gym in the east coast of Singapore. It's called Spartans Boxing Club. I think you guys will really get along. I think you'll like the concept." And so that sort of transfers over to Naz's story. And Naz is a serial entrepreneur. He's had businesses sort of all around the world. And in 2006, he was living the good life in Dubai. He was 120 odd kilos, massively overweight. He was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and the doctor said, "Hey, look, you know, you need to sort your life out or else." And he found boxing as sort of a sport. And in Dubai in 2006, he signed up for a white collar boxing match straight off the bat. He's like, "Right, if I'm going to do this, you know, do it the crazy way. I need to lose a bunch of weight. Sign up for a fight. That'll make it happen."
Wow.
So he signed himself up for a white collar boxing match. He lost 40 kilos. You know, went through a 12-week period, had a fight at the end of it in front of all of his friends and family. So he fell in love with the sport of boxing, and he's since done a number of white collar boxing matches. So Naz and I meet each other in 2015. He's just opened this gym, Spartans Boxing Club. Concept was really simple: community boxing gym in the community for the community, make it safe and accessible for everybody, people that didn't want to box. You know, all the boxing gyms in Singapore at that stage, everyone was talking about who's the biggest, who's the baddest, who's the toughest. We went the other way. We said, everyone's welcome. We're not a fight gym. It's a friendly, inclusive atmosphere. We were teaching boxing to kids, to women, to families. And that's sort of where it started. And the first conversation that he and I had, I walked into the gym, which in hindsight now, it looked like a good gym now, but compared to our gyms now, it was a hole. But I walked in and I said, "Mate, this is a lovely gym. I'd love to have something like this in Australia one day." And he said, "Hey, look, you know, I need a business partner." And then we sort of did a deal from there. But the ambition when we started that gym, we were not thinking about franchising. We were not thinking about building a global brand. We were just thinking about having a cool boxing gym that got people boxing that weren't ever boxing before, and also just to have a gym that wasn't full of dicks, you know, like make it welcoming. And when people came in, you know, their first name, people just felt at home. And that just resonated with the people in the area that we were doing it in Singapore. And that's how it all started.
Wow. So that was like you had no ambition to like when you met Nas and Spartan, that was like, oh wow, like, and he presented that opportunity, like that was when the seed was planted for you?
So because of I'd always thought in the back of my head, you know, look, one day, it was probably more like one day, like, you know, many, many years, maybe when I moved back to Australia, I'd love to have a boxing gym. So it was always in the back of my mind, but I just didn't think it would be a reality that sort of at that stage. And then, you know, that sort of threw my life on a really wild turn of events because, you know, I obviously had a successful career in what I was doing. What prompted us to want to sort of turn this business into something was the business results of that first gym were really compelling. So, OPEX, it was break even within the first few months. It was profitable from the first year. So Naz and I were both business guys first, and we knew that they were, pretty good business metrics. So 2017, we started thinking about, right, how do we expand this thing? We had a few meetings. There's a government body here called Enterprise Singapore, and they sort of help Singapore businesses expand. And so we had some conversations with them around, look, what are the options to expand this thing? They spoke to us about, look, if you want to own and operate, if you want to sort of bootstrap it, do it all yourselves, like this is how far you can get, and this is the kind of capital that it might take. Or there's this option of franchising, which in theory, if you do it well and you build a good franchise, it's infinitely scalable. And so that for us sounded exciting. And that's we made the decision in 2018 that we were going to franchise. We opened our second gym, first franchise in 2018. So they celebrate their 6th anniversary this year, this August, right now, in fact.
That's in Singapore?
In Singapore, yeah.
How did that first franchisee relationship come together, Russ?
There's a guy who was
gym?
a member in the first gym.
Yeah.
And when we told him this is what we were doing, he took a punt on us. I'm still infinitely grateful to him, because realistically, the franchise that they got, that first franchise, it was a very, very rough cut version of what a franchise should be, right? It was some SOPs, it was us, literally like we were operating it with them essentially.
And a logo on the door.
Yeah, correct. We put some of our best coaches in there, to help them sort of get it up. But essentially it was a management thing, right? So that happened, and then that did everything that we said that it would do. And then late 2019, Naz and I had a meeting and said, hey, look, if we want to get serious about this thing, one of us has to really do this properly. Like one of us has to take it on. So end of 2019, I quit my 15-year recruitment career, and went after the hobby and passion for the real gig. And then, so that was, October 2019. We opened the 3rd and 4th gym January, February 2020, and COVID hit.
Quick.
I was like, oh, geez.
Are they corporate? Were they corporate-owned locations, Russ, or those two, or are they franchise as well? All franchise?
Yeah. So look, we started with that strategy of only having sort of 1 or 2 corporate locations. And we've maintained that strategy until now. We've got a few corporates, but the bulk of ours are franchises. So COVID hit, and I'm careful about the way I tell this story, but COVID for us was a blessing. It gave us a chance to sit still, really look at what a world-class franchise was, digitize the entire offering from customer experience right through to the back end, the franchise management system. All of the stuff that you need to do to be able to scale a franchise, not just where you are, but internationally. So we came out of COVID, ended up getting the Singapore business up to 12 locations.
Over what time frame was that? Seems like a lot.
It was a very short time frame. It was from beginning of 2020, and sort of COVID was still around. And then as COVID started to subside, 20 and 21 is when we were like, we were just, we were growing. And then in October 2021, we launched Dubai. So our first Dubai location opened then. And then Dubai, we've got 5 gyms open in Dubai. We've got another 4 in the pipeline to open in the next sort of 6 or so months. So Dubai's happened really quickly for us. And then subsequently, we've gone into other countries. So we're in Cambodia now. We're in Philippines. We opened our location in Melbourne a few months ago. So, it's I don't know. When I tell the story, it kind of like a 9-year process of being an owner operator to a franchising business sounds like a fair chunk of time. When we started franchising seriously, minus COVID, it seems pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
Does seem quick. Russ, can you talk about like again, just what you're willing to share from a high level sort of unit economics, capex for a typical franchisee to come into the system? Like what's an investment look like? Sort of loose or expected kind of ROI on these units?
Good question. And this was one of the things, right? So if you rewind back to 2017, when we weren't talking about boutique fitness.
Yeah.
We didn't know good metrics about boutique fitness. But what we looked, when we analyzed the business, we had a good business model. So, the first one, we invested, about 150 grand to get the first gym up and running. It was OPEX break even by month 3, and it was making money from first year. And they were the metrics that we were most interested in. And so, how did you get to those metrics? Well, the gyms were relatively small footprint. So ours are typically 150 to 200 square meters. We put them in. The first one was sort of in the eastern outskirts of Singapore, not in town. So it was a neighborhood model. All the things now that when you look at good boutique fitnesses, you go, yeah, that's boutique fitness, right? That's the model. So we were doing all of that stuff. So that's the model that we've then put together. So to give you an idea, metrics are initial investment is about 250 grand, say Aussie in Oz.
Yep.
Franchise fees 50 grand. CapEx depending on where you are, but that's the beauty of a boxing gym. What goes in them is, there's not a lot of stuff that goes in the boxing gyms: floor, ring, aircon, and lights, as well as a little bit of technology. So, the equipment investment that goes into that, CapEx anywhere from 120 to 150. So with your 200 grand, your franchise fee, your CapEx, and you're up and running, you got a bit of OPEX as well. So the sort of metrics that you see on that, once the gyms are up over, 200 members, they're considered at maturity at about 300 members. Bottom line, you're doing sort of 30, 35%. ROI on your initial investment, 3 to 5 years. So, all of the sort of metrics that you would expect from I guess everyone's similar in terms of that boutique space. But again, we organically found that, which is, for me, when I tell the story to potential franchisees, I think that's really important. We built a great business first. All of the metrics, we didn't sort of sit there and go, right, how do we do this? It organically came to our attention. And then, similarly with the concept, right? The concept wasn't us going out trying to build a franchise. It was, how do you make an awesome boxing gym that people are going to want to come to and you're going to be able to build communities around? And I think for me, all of that stuff is when I talk to people now who want to get involved, for me, that's what I can really hang my hat on.
What was the, how important was your HR or recruitment background in sort of filtering franchisees or potential franchisees?
Good question. What I found in recruitment over the years is, it's a dark art, right? It's not an exact science. So, with all of the systems, processes, all of the best practice stuff, at the end of the day, it's not a flawless method. So I want to say that we do things relatively well, and I want to say that we've got good, robust procedures and policies and all of that stuff in place. At the end of the day, you're recruiting people, and with the best will in the world, hopefully you get it right most of the time. So far, we have.
Yeah, it's very true. What I was going to say, Russ, is that model is really interesting, and like that combat sport typically plays well into it, where you got a market for kids and you got parents who want to get their kids involved. You mentioned yourself, you went in at 8. If we had, I got an 8 and 6-year-old myself. Courtney's got young kids as well. We spoke about it. If we had an accessible, BJJ school or something like that in our area, like my kids would be in there. It's not near us. So like you got that really good market for kids, you got the market for adults to penetrate as well, but it's also you got that corporate market. And when Courtney explained Spartan to me, I don't know, 6 to 9 months ago, I said, what an interesting concept where you can take these guys off the street, basically, especially in the corporate space, take these guys off the street, put them through a 12-week training camp, and then have them fight each other in the day, and rally their friends around that group and put people together. I thought, what a really interesting concept.
Yeah, look, mate, all the stuff that you said then, right? I think that's got a lot to do with our success. So, first things first. We run the largest kids and youth boxing program in Singapore and the UAE. We've got some really decorated boxers that have come through that. So doing kids classes for me has been a key part of our success. one of the things that I always say to our franchisees is you bring kids bring the families build communities. I think this has got a lot to do with the environment that I grew up in. I try and adopt that sports club mentality. The local footy club or the local cricket club or whatever sport it is that you're involved in Australia, the community gets built around that club, right? So we absolutely try and do exactly the same thing in the boxing gyms. And then look, the white collar boxing, we've got sort of three arms of our business. So we've got our gyms, we've got our events, and we've got our academy, right? And so having that infrastructure underneath the one banner, each of those sort of feeds into each other. So, if you look at our membership base in the gyms, there's only about 10% of people that decide that they actually want to compete, right? The rest of them are there just for fun, fitness, and community. But having that unique 10%, whether it's people that want to do white collar amateur boxing or professional boxing, that creates a really interesting dynamic for the rest of the members. People want to be around boxers. They want to train around boxers. Now, if you're able to then activate the network of those boxers, and especially in the white collar space, where we unapologetically say our events are not just for you to go through this transformational power of boxing, but we also want to bring your networks together, right? And there's a huge benefit in that, the people that do it. Also, the mindset of the corporates that do that. Again, it's a cliche thing that a lot of the guys hear me say in our business. Some people want to run a marathon, and some people want to climb Everest, and then there's a crazy bunch of fuckers that want to have a fight, right? And that's these corporate guys, and you're surprised. The guys, we've got lawyers and doctors and CEOs and all sorts of people who you would never think want to get involved in this sort of thing, and they absolutely do. So doing that in an environment that appreciates that they're still corporate guys, right? You want to do it in a safe environment. You want to make sure that your professionalism is at the highest levels. But if you can capture that, it's really, really powerful.
I think there's a big, I feel like there's a shift in the health and fitness or health and wellness, especially in the corporate and business world as well, when I think we're starting to understand that moving and like being deliberate with your health and fitness helps you run a business, helps you lead a team, helps you sell, helps you retain. And I feel like there's a massive shift in just business owners taking their health very seriously.
Yep. Totally agree.
There's actually our lawyer actually done a white collar event recently, and he had a very similar story to exactly what you have mentioned. Like, he lost probably about 35 kilos, and he's a different person.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is that lives with them for like the longest time, right? Like, so long as they maintain it, it's changed the direction of their life.
You've hit the nail on the head. We talk about the transformational power of boxing, and one of the things that I've always loved about boxing gyms, and you see a bunch of stuff around about this, right? That's the beauty of boxing gyms. The people who are in there, they're from all varied different types of backgrounds. It could be a hotshot lawyer dealing with the cleaner. There's no sort of there's no hierarchy or anything like that in the boxing gym.
It's merit based, right?
It's merit based, so everyone's on a sort of even playing field. But when you get the guys that they sign up for a white collar boxing match, and they go through that process, and the stories as to why people do that. And this is what we talk to people about when they sign up for the events. You've got one guy who is, high level CEO. He's just trying to deal with the stress and pressure of the job. Great, go and box. You've got someone that's trying to kick the booze or drugs. Great, go and box. You've got someone that's going through a divorce. Great, go and box. You've got someone that wants to be the hero in their kids' eyes. Fantastic, go and box. And the number of people that, and my business partner is one of them, the number of people that have done a white collar boxing match, and to this day, their WhatsApp profile picture is still them, right? Hand raised. It happens all the time. And I think what is probably the part for me, which is the most moving post white collar events, the guys that come together in the squad, so it's usually 18 to 20 people in the squad, they all become comrades, right? They're all best buddies after that. And then the stories that you hear afterwards of like what people have gone through, there's tear jerkers, there's inspiration, there's all of that stuff, and it's all built in there. I remember the last event that we did in Dubai was in June, so I flew over there for the event. And I met one of the blokes there, and he was telling me, he goes, mate, my daughter, like, he's a corporate guy, right? My daughter's gone to school, and she tells everyone her dad's a boxer. I was like, that's amazing, and yeah. So you're absolutely right. It sticks with people. It's defining. I sort of give everybody a pep talk on the guys for the white collar Singapore squad. They started training beginning of August. And, I went and sort of went in and given a bit of a pep talk to get them fired up. And, it's an elite number of people that decide that they're actually going to have a punch on, right, against someone else who's trained to punch on with them. Yeah. And if you only do it once in your life, it's just definitely worth doing it.
And when you mentioned before, dude, about like the CEOs that are like just trying to like have like, relieve stress or like going through a divorce, like it's impossible to like think about them challenges in your life when someone's trying to punch you in the face.
So exactly right. So we've got a part of our business which is called Spartans Mind. So the sort of three areas of our business, which is the events, the academy, and the gyms, that is all underpinned by a few enablers. And for us, Spartans Mind is one of them, and that is where we link mental health and wellness programs into boxing. Right. And so we've got a couple of different streams that sit underneath this. One is where we're helping people that are going through, maybe someone's doing some kind of psychotherapy, whether it's for, anxiety, depression, or stuff that's more serious. And so with those programs, the psychologists recommend our boxing programs for people to do this as their form of physical fitness. We've got another one where we help youth at risk and ex-offenders. So we've got a program which is built around sort of visioning what people should look like, future versions of themselves. And there's a whole counseling program that sits in with that. And we link that into boxing as well. And so through all of that stuff, then you start the conversation around holistic wellness and mental health and all the rest of it. So the buzzwords are things like mindfulness, right? Well, boxing is the ultimate form of mindfulness. If you are not there in the moment, as there's a bit of leather coming straight for your face.
I was just about to say, like, when you mentioned about anxiety there, and I think the definition of anxiety basically is, living into the future, right? Like you're constantly ahead of yourself. When you have people swinging at you, you're not thinking anything more about how do I get away from this fucking thing. Like that's, you're there and you're planted.
Yeah. And look, we talk a lot about this now. The guy that heads this up in our business is a guy by the name of Dr. Paul Englert. So he's a PhD in psychology. He's done a lot of leadership stuff. He's done some youth stuff. And so he's the real research focused guy. And, there's a lot of research around the benefits of high intensity exercise for stuff like this, dealing with anxiety and, other sorts of, sort of mental health issues. But you're absolutely right. You've got to be absolutely dialed in. It's the ultimate form of mindfulness. There's great research around the benefits for people with regards to all of these things, as well as, some more serious stuff. Boxing, there's some really good body of research around the benefits of boxing for patients with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and a lot of this sort of stuff as well.
And a huge accomplishment too. You can build up. It's got a really good ramp period of work up to an event. Like I actually really like that. That sort of it's a really good climax.
Absolutely, and I mean, and it is a climax. The events that we put on, we do them in a 5-star hotel, black tie event, red carpet. Some of the walkouts that you see people do. We had a guy on our last Dubai show. He had his own rapper come along. It's absolutely wild, the show that we put on. All the food, all the booze, people have an amazing night out. So it's your first boxing match by right should really be in a scout hall in front of like 10 or 20 people. PCYC kind of model. These guys are going all out.
Who funds that? Like how's that funded? Is that through ticket sales? Is that up to the franchise? Like is that a profitable event that the franchisees hold, or the HQ thing?
So it's run through HQ, and basically the model is in order for the competitors to sign up, they have to be able to sell tickets as well. Right. So we tell them, look, unashamedly, you need to bring your network. That's what makes these things. So essentially, the events are underwritten by ticket sales from the competitors. We bring in some sponsors, so that provides a little bit of cream on top for us. And then I think the key thing is, which we've not spoken about at all yet, is every single one of our events is linked to a charity. And so in Singapore, we work with an organization here called Impart SG. And so Impart are a not-for-profit charity here in Singapore that help kids, youth facing adversity. So we've worked with those guys for the last 6 or 7 years. And then in Dubai, we work with a charity called Golf for Good. And Golf for Good are basically a charity that build hospitals in developing countries. So for us, it ticks all of the boxes in terms of transformational power for the competitors, good business model for us, good commercial model for us, but as well as making sure that there's a significant CSR component of it. So, it's really a complete business model.
Do you see a little uplift in memberships or like even inquiries from a franchisee acquisition after these big events?
Yeah, it's great marketing too.
Yeah.
Right. There's no better marketing than having a room full of 600 people sitting there watching their friends punch on, getting a couple of drinks down them, saying that they can do the next one.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases as well, like I imagine there's some high net worth individuals in the crowd.
Yeah. As I'm sitting here and we're talking about this, Russ, I'm just sitting here thinking, I'd love to get in a ring with Cordo and fight him.
Oh, dude, it's over.
Like I would love to do that. Like, line it up and I'll fight Cordo.
Yeah, let's party.
Hey, you heard it here first, guys. So we're going to start doing these in Oz next year.
Yeah. We'll fly down to Melbourne for it.
I want to go to Dubai.
Yeah. We need to go to Dubai.
So here's the thing. This is where this gets really cool. So we're the only boxing business like this that owns the sort of white collar corporate boxing space across locations, across countries. Yeah. So our business model is this year we do 2 in Dubai, we're doing 1 in Singapore. We just did a partner event last week in the Philippines. But our business model is we'll do 2 events per region per year. Right. Yeah. So that next year there'll be 2 in Dubai, 2 in Singapore, 2 in the Philippines, 2 in Oz. Yeah. And then the grand plan is we want to do a big gala event where we invite the winners to come in, probably get everyone into Dubai, and where we just put on a huge event.
ESPN covers it.
See how we go. Get it on DAZN.
Yeah, that's cool. You can have a club versus club fighting each other, region versus region.
Correct. Yeah. One of the other things that we do, just as far as like club v club and that sort of stuff. So for us, in the event side of it, white collar is like our top end event. We also have something that we call Spartans Boxing League, right? And so Spartans Boxing League is exactly what you just mentioned. That's club versus club. So every 2 months, we have our clubs all come together and they compete against each other, and we run it as a league. So they do it over a 6-month period. They accumulate points, and then at the end of it, the top club, female and male boxers, get awarded. And so the SBL, we call it, Spartans Boxing League, that one's more about community participation and getting everybody together. So we're sort of trying to attack the event space at different levels. One of them's the top end of town, and then the other one's really at sort of grassroots community level.
That's cool, man. I like that a lot. What's the status of the brand right now? Like, how many units you guys got opened at the minute, and what countries are you operating on?
So we've got 19 gyms open right now. So Singapore, Dubai, Philippines, Cambodia, Australia. We'll make an announcement about another country within the next sort of month or 2. So another Southeast Asian country we're going into. But for us right now, we're hyper focused on the areas where we are, which is Asia Pacific and the GCC in the Middle East. Not just because we think that they're good regions, because they absolutely are, but within our sort of, our ownership structure, we're lucky in that, I'm based in Singapore. This is where we started, but obviously with the Oz connection, Melbourne's home for me. And Naz is based in Dubai. And he's running a few businesses across the GCC region as well. So we've got sort of, good holds into those markets, as guys, as people anyways, with networks and stuff like that. So that's our focus now, is expanding the Asia Pacific and GCC regions.
Is that a do you have a unit goal, or is there, what are you guys working towards?
Yeah, so we want to have, by the end of 2025, we want to have 50 opened or sold by end of 2025. So at the moment, we've got 19 open. We've got another 5 in the pipe. So we got about a year and a half to finish up. You get that, next numbers to 50.
Yeah. And what do you think what helps you get there? Do you think is it growing the current franchisees? Like, are they picking up more? Like, that seems like the simple.
Yeah, exactly. So Dubai was great for us. We opened a couple, and then we had a few guys that came in and said that they want to do multi-units. So, multi-units is good for us. The thing that I'd mentioned a minute ago about the next country that we go into, that's going to be a master franchise for us, right? So obviously, that's the way to scale the quickest, is to do sort of masters and multis. So that's sort of what I'm very much focused on at the moment. But in existing markets where we're already at, so like in Melbourne, in Philippines, we've already got conversations going on for the next locations. So I think that those locations will start to roll pretty quickly. And it's proven to be the case. We've got 2 markets to use as an example of expansion. But one of the beautiful things with this model is, and I'm sure it's like other boutique businesses in fitness, you open gyms, people have an awesome experience, they love the training, or they love the community, or they do white collar. And that's realistically where you start to build up your traction. So every community is going to have a bunch of people that want to do the next one and the next one and the next one. So I think Philippines and Melbourne will start to roll pretty quickly over the next 6 months or so.
What's the team structure in the actual gyms look like, or is it how many sort of FTE coaches, or what does that look like?
Depends on which country.
Yeah.
But sort of generally speaking, it's typically a gym or a club manager, full-time head coach, and then depending on the number of members that you've got, that will depend on how many freelancers you're using in comparison to FTEs. In markets where employment costs are a little higher, you typically run with the freelance model, and obviously the operation hours and things like that may fluctuate a little bit. Whereas if you go into markets like developing countries, you could have up to 5 or 6 FTEs, no matter what the membership number is in that gym. So we play around with the staffing model a little bit, depending on the market and the costs. But generally speaking, 4 FTEs in a gym that's at maturity is about it. So it's a pretty lean staffing model.
Okay, cool. And for the user proposition, come in membership type, what's the pricing if you want to, even Singapore or Australian dollars, like what's that proposition look like?
Yeah, so we do, I guess one of the things that we've done with our membership model, we started out with subscription-based models 3, 6, and 12 months. And what we've really seen over the last couple of years is consumer really wants flexibility now. So, we've got everything from class packs to buddy class sharing packs through to 1, 3, 6, and 12-month memberships. And in Oz, we've also got weekly memberships. So, memberships typically range from, depending how long someone joins, about $208 a month up to about $280 a month.
What's that share membership like? Explain to me about that. I've never even heard that name, but it sounds incredible. Is it like what I think?
Like literally, it's without putting a timestamp on this podcast, it's August now, and we launched it in August.
Wow.
I was chatting to a good buddy of mine who runs one of the most successful fitness businesses here in Singapore. They've got an amazing yoga brand here, and he was telling me that their most popular packages, they have basically buddy class sharing packs. So we've always done, you could buy a 10 pack or a 20 pack or whatever it is. So with the buddy sharing packs, the same concept, but you can loop in some friends and you can share the classes basically.
And is that in a pack or is that a DD?
Beg your pardon?
Is that in a pack? Do they buy a 10 pack and they can have 5 each, or they sign it all membership and I can go twice?
No, so it's in a pack.
Yeah.
Right. So you 2 guys, you might buy 50 pack together, and then you can distribute that however you want.
Yeah, interesting. I like
Yes. Yeah. It's I think probably, what we've seen over the years is for varying different reasons, right? I remember when we started, the main sellers were 6 and 12 months up front, right? And that's really pretty rare these days. Not just through the likes of people just wanting to have more flexibility. There's a lot of the fitness aggregators and stuff like that, which have changed the way that people buy. So you've got to adapt with the times, and so I think we just try and show our people that are interested to do what we do, that there's flexibility around the way that they can consume fitness, and it works.
I like it, dude.
It's interesting. Russ, who do you guys consider to be your main competitor?
Good question. Good question. It really depends. In the boxing space, I'm going to sound like a wanker here. In the boxing space, there's not really anyone that does what we do.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of boxing concepts, you've got UBX. Obviously, they're doing a phenomenal job, and I love their business model, right? But what they do is very much, it's convenience training, it's circuit based, and it really leans in on that sort of convenience factor. And, it's written on the tin with their model, you don't even have to worry about sparring. So the sort of area that we operate in, which is this sort of authentic boxing space where you still learn the sport, you've still got an opportunity to progress through and compete. There's really no one else that does that en masse and scalable like we do.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of the old school boxing gyms, the spit and sawdust, rough and ready kind of boxing gyms. And so we kind of fall neatly somewhere in the middle. And so that's really a big part of the opportunity for us. So, from a consumer standpoint, there's not a real clear-cut competitor for us. From franchising perspective, who are the guys that are going to buy franchises from us? Well, everybody's a competitor then, right? And then it just comes down to what modality are people most interested in, whether it's functional or yoga or Pilates or whatever else. So I hope I'm not dodging that question.
No, it's great. Not at all, dude. No, it was perfect answer. Do you settled in Singapore? You think you'll be there for the immediate future?
Topical question, mate. Look, we live here, and this will be a base. Will we go other places when the right opportunities arise? Absolutely, we would. So I foresee in the next probably a few years at least, we'll either be in places for periods of time. But we've also got a young family, so kids are at school, and my missus, we've just got a newborn. I'm surprised you couldn't hear the crying just now. So yeah, but look, for us, there's so much exciting opportunities going on in Asia, in the Middle East especially. Saudi is, there's so much going on with Saudi as a nation, and also with Saudi and sports and Saudi and boxing. So never say never. If the right thing came up, who knows where we might go. But Singapore will have some sort of a base here.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Interesting. It's been really cool sitting down and unpacking your story and learning more about Spartan Boxing Club. And I appreciate your time, brother. And I'm excited to sort of sit back and watch you guys, achieve that goal of 50 units in between now and 2025.
Thanks, boys. And so the notes that I took down here was white collar boxing. You guys are punching on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we've got to fight each other. I think that's got to happen now.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it.
I'm all for going to Dubai. I think we've got to go to Dubai. Either that or the Philippines. Let's have it at Soler in the Philippines.
Oh, yeah, my buddies run Soler.
Oh, right. Don't tell us that.
Hang over. Yeah,
that's like our favourite spot in the world.
Is it really? Oh, mate, next time you're over there, let me know. A couple of my good buddies run it.
June next year.
Mate, good times over there. Good times.
We go there every June. We go and meet up with the team there, and Courtney and I, it's a highlight of our trip. We go and hang there for 3-4 nights and just hang out and still there. We love it.
The gym, the food, bro. It's
hospitality.
It's incredible.
It's a great spot. So a really, really good buddy of mine. Shout out to GP, who also do, by the way, there's an event in Philippines called the Black Tie Affair. So they sort of do a white collar concept as well. So as GP and a few other guys in the Philippines, we just had the event there last week. But yeah, all those boys are there. So yeah, if you're ever over in Solaire Resort, I'll hook you up with GP.
I'm all about it, GP. Let's make it happen. I appreciate you, Russ. You have a wonderful evening, mate, and we'll talk really soon.
Cheers, boys.
Thanks,
See you,
Russ.
brother.
See you, mate.
Peace.
Cool brand, cool concept.
I like it, eh?
Good growth, dude.
Great growth. I like it. I think it hits a lot of the boxes that you want.
It seems to be far. Like, it's incredible that they've been able to scale to that many units with that level. Like, 'cause it's technical. Like, you're teaching people how to fight. It's not just hitting a bag and trying to get your heart rate up, bouncing around. Like a big component of it is the fighting element. Yeah, it's really cool. It's also interesting to me that they're growing through that Asian market.
Like they are.
Yeah, it's exciting, dude. Like, that starts getting into South. Like, I don't know enough about Dubai or Saudi Arabia. Like, but to me, I think there's a huge amount of capital there.
Massive amounts.
So, like, I think it could be pretty crazy when some of these guys get their hands on an idea or a concept and want to throw their cash. Wasn't there an F-45 there that they spent $1 million in a fit out?
Dubai, downtown Dubai, $1 million US. $1 million US. And I remember talking to the guys, and he's like, they need to spend it in that area because it's what the consumer expects. Like, the consumer expects that.
Yeah.
And like, he's like, we can't build, a $40,000. When the first couple around here couldn't do it, people wouldn't sign up.
Yeah, wild.
So yeah, it's interesting. But I love it. I think it's a great concept. So when are we fighting?
Right now. Mate,
I think it'll be fun.
Imagine that. Imagine if we do fight at Solaire. That'd be gangster.
Oh, that'd be fun. That would be fun.
There's no way you win.
The only way I think I can. Yeah. I think the only way you beat me is just
size. The size is.
I got size and I got reach on you.
You won't wear me out.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the way you win is you wear me out. Like, I think you just got to run me around.
The size.
I can't fight. Like,
reach, but you could. But this is the interesting thing, right? You don't need to fight. You need a box.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
like if you
you can learn.
You can outbox someone.
Yeah.
You don't have to outfight someone to outbox someone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely got your reach.
Yeah.
Definitely got your reach.
And reach height. Like, I'd have a bit of a hard time.
You'd have a hard time getting up to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just work on my core. You can hit me core all night.
Bread basket.
I'll just work on the bread basket. I'll get you in the rope and dope. I'll just sit on the ring and you can wear me out in the corner and I'll step up on the 12th round and knock you out.
Have you sparred before?
Nah. When I was in year 7 or year 8.
Yeah.
That was
And well, this other thing as well. When you when you put gloves on, dude,
and
you spar, it's like I can't see anything.
Yeah, correct.
And you're blocking, and it's like you're looking through. It's kind of like, when you reverse for the first time.
Yeah, and you're like,
and you look in the mirror, you're like, fuck's everything backwards? Like, like if I go here, you go left hand down, it spins the other way.
And then everything's loud too. Like, you got your ears on, it's loud, you hear echoes, you hit the head. Like, when you get hit, it sounds like you've been smashed. So it's like, it disorients you. And
then the thing is as well, like, you cover up, like you hit me, I cover up, and now I've lost all my vision.
Yeah. So I did I sparred, I think it was year 7 or year 8 at the PCYC. Remember Chad Berry?
Yeah.
Remember Chad Berry? Chad Berry and his mates. Can't remember who it was. It was
a couple years older than you.
Yeah. So we sparred with those boys and they flogged us.
Yeah.
And I thought they'd take us easy.
It makes sense. Like, it's like when you're 12.
That would have been like 11. That would have been year 11 or 12. I would have been 11 or 12. Yeah, he would have been year 10 or 11. I remember getting the ring with Chad Berry and we sparred with those boys. Big, yeah. We sparred with those guys, but we had fun.
And like, let's be honest, like, all black guys can fight.
Yeah, correct. So that was it. No, I like the concept. Commercially, it sounds like it makes sense too.
I'm interested to understand what that Melbourne one's doing.
Yeah, it's just recently opened.
Yeah, not long ago, about 6 months ago. But it's all like, usually if they're looking for a second site, things are like going okay.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I don't know if I would necessarily, like, me personally, I don't know if I'd necessarily train there all year round, but I think I'd be like, hey. Yeah, I'll do camps. Like, hey, 3 months, I'm gonna do a fight. No, maybe not even 5. It's like I'm gonna do a camp for 12 months to achieve something.
Maybe it is the pack thing.
Yeah,
for you.
Yeah,
maybe you do buy a 50 pack and you do 2 1 week and you don't go for 3 weeks and then you do a couple.
Yeah, I like the idea of that fight. Yeah, I like it. And then you get I can see how that spreads really fast too. You're at a table with 10 boys and it's like, oh, we should fight next time. Then you go, all right, and then you sign up and then just self-fulfilling loop.
Well, you see it happen in in sport, like especially like that, like in Origin, for example, like that person that always had a grudge of this person, they put him in a like YouTube. The YouTubers do it
Correct.
great.
Do a red, yeah.
Like they do an incredible job because it's all publicity,
build
like
build the
publicity.
tension around it.
I have it like I think no one does it better than what Logan Paul and KSI have done it.
Yeah.
Like they're in business together. Like they have this facade that like they hate each other and they just do an incredible job. So that was great. Legend of a dude. Just a great guy.
Good dude. Yeah, keen to just watch them, see what they get up to. Nah, good. He's a good dude. That's one of my favorite ones yet. So
Legend. And an Aussie guy too, which is cool.